Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
After just 7 days, 96% of Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream users saw reduced wrinkles and diminished dark circles. Shop now at Sephora and discover how change can happen in the blink of an eye. Consumer tested by 110 women.
This episode is brought to you by FXX and Hulu. Futurama returns on September 15th, blending heartfelt moments with razor-sharp humor while accidentally saving the day. The Planet Express crew is back, defying gravity and common sense. From the creator of The Simpsons comes 10 new episodes where the romance is hotter, the threats are bigger, and the action hits harder. Don't miss the all-new season of Futurama returning September 15th at 8 p.m. Watch it on FXX or stream it on Hulu.
Yeah, laugh it up, Gavin. How's Prince Andrew doing these days?
Ass. The following podcast contains...
You cannot say filth, flying filth in front of people.
explicit language.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you slept in a glass coffin breathing chamber to keep you young, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is episode number 507, the Tito, give me some tissue edition of the show, where we talk about how things started getting weird with the King of Pop. Stay tuned. The What the Hell Are You Thinking podcast is brought to you by Rob's Rhinoplasty. No one will know it isn't your nose. At Rob's, we understand that everyone has something about their body they would change if they could, and if it's your nose, you can. Rob's can handle any nose, big or small, narrow to broad. Rob fixes what genetics or circumstances didn't. From unfortunate hooks to undeserved haymakers, Rob takes what you got and turns it into what you want. Don't suffer with the wrong nose for your face. Come to Rob's and find the right nose to take its place.
Then I found out Michael Jackson was looking for me, and I was like, yo, when I found my manager called me up and said, yo, man, Michael Jackson is mad. I was like, so? You know, because I fucked Mike up, you know, Mike don't weigh but $105, you know. I bust that ass on Mike. I was looking for but my manager said, you know, we don't know everything about Michael Jackson. He might be this bad motherfucker behind closed doors. He's a recluse, you know, behind closed doors. He might be completely different. And I'd be at a party and have Michael walk up to me one day and be like this. Can I talk to you for a minute? Yeah, what's your motherfucking problem, man? Well, how come you keep fucking with me then, huh? What's all the motherfucking jokes? You don't like my clothes? What's your motherfucking problem? You know that I'm Michael motherfucking Jackson, I will bust your ass. Get the fuck out, my motherfucker. I'll moonwalk all up and down your ass, motherfucker. You mind your motherfucking business. I hear some more shit, I'm gonna put this glove up your ass. I'll see you later.
Growing up in the hard-scrabble schoolyards of the 1970s...
You really are an old bastard.
You don't know how important it was not to be the weird kid in your class. It could be any other kind of kid, really. You could be the cool kid, the fidgety kid, the kid that had all the teachers loved. You could even be the stinky kid. I was, of course, the
fat kid.
Hurtful, factual, but hurtful. But the thing you simply could not be was the weird kid. And every grade had a weird kid. If you're old enough, you can probably think of your grade's weird kid. And if you can't, then you were the weird kid. For younger, more enlightened generations, they too had weird kids. You just weren't allowed to call them that. What was a weird kid? Well, today we'd probably place them somewhere on the autism spectrum. Maybe they wore odd clothes that didn't really go together. There was a kid in my third grade class that came to class in his Halloween costume for the entire school year. He said he just liked Spider-Man a lot. Never so often, he'd slip on the Spider-Man hood when he was stressed and take it off when he calmed down. There was a girl in the 6th grade that carried her stuffed bear to school no matter how much the other girls made fun of her. Mr. Bear wasn't, by God, leaving her fucking side. And we had a kid in my 4th grade class that we called Booger. Now, a lot of kids had...
I have a booger-eating habit.
But Booger had a problem. Booger didn't just eat his boogers. He would eat anyone's boogers.
That is so ew.
There were crying kids, staring kids that would put a paper bag over their head and refuse to take it off. Back in the 1970s, no one thought about the underlying conditions or psychological reasons for why the weird kids were weird. They were just weird. It did not help that being weird got you savagely bullied. A wiser person might have chickened or egged the situation, but don't go looking for wisdom in a group of 8-year-olds. Now, I hear some of you asking, what about the
teachers?
Please. The teachers were there to get us writing in cursive and to keep us from killing each other. Everything else was just something kids had to work out amongst ourselves. In all honesty, the rest of us kids loved the weird kids because they caught a lot of shit that would have landed on us fat kids or stinky kids if they weren't out there eating everyone's boogers or dressing as Spider-Man every goddamn day. Because the weird kids were there, the rest of us slightly more normal kids, sorry, that's just the parlance of the time, we're free to live our lives of quiet dweebiness, pursuing nerdy hobbies and generally not having our undergarments floss our teeth from the back end. But you know what? No matter how weird they were, at least they weren't sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber. Which brings me to this week's topic, when Michael's antics finally stopped being quirky and got just plain weird. It took a couple of years, but once people noticed, they noticed big time. But before we get to that,
Jesus! Why do you always do this?
Let's take a minute to talk about the long history of famous musicians doing weird shit.
You have my undivided attention.
Celebrities in general, and musicians in particular, tend to be a little odd. Now, to be sure, some part of this is that anyone who lives under constant scrutiny will have something about them revealed that other people just don't understand. For example, I talk to myself in funny voices and giggle at what they say all the time.
Which is literally insane.
Not unless they are telling me to do things and then I do them. Otherwise, I'm just being quirky. But musicians going back through history seem to take quirky into oddity and oddity into batshit crazy. Take Mozart, for example. Hands down, one of the greatest composers of all time. The man was obsessed with his bodily functions. From a Tumblr called The Starving Pianist, quote, in letters to his family, primarily his mother, sister, and wife, Mozart would write long details about his pooping and farting. He described the smell, the taste, the texture of his farts, along with the consistency of his bowel movements, unquote.
What? What am I supposed to do with that information?
Robert Schumann claimed that demonic voices and the dead played music in his brain, and he wrote those melodies into his symphonies. He was also into underage girls. Chopin would play piano in the dark and demanded his heart be removed when he died, so he could make sure that he was actually dead. Hondo would fly into rages if he heard an instrument out of tune, to the point of physically assaulting the musician. His symphony players took to tuning up hours before he was scheduled to enter the symphony hall. And of course, rock and roll is full of famous stories about the weird shit that rock and rollers did. Jerry Lee Lewis, aside from marrying his teenage cousin, once showed up shit-faced at Graceland, threatening to kill Elvis. Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys hung out with Charles Manson, went crazy, stopped bathing, lived in a drugged-out terror for the rest of his life from hanging out with Charles Manson. David Bowie, where do you even begin with David Bowie? He lived off milk peppers and cocaine for a while, stored his own jars of piss in the fridge. Why did he keep jars of his piss in the fridge? So the wizards couldn't get his piss. He also flirted with Nazism for a bit, but that was probably just the cocaine talking. Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham used to try and kill his bandmates on the regular by throwing furniture down for them from hotel windows. He shit in his girlfriend's purse and once filled his bathtub with sharks. Prince gave up fucking and drugs and returned to the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then went around Detroit with other Jehovah's Witnesses recruiting for his faith. Jim Morrison used to get naked on stage, getting arrested for this more than once. Punk rocker G.G. Allen, born literally Jesus Christ Allen, used to carve his flesh on stage, shit on stage, and shove things up his ass. Ozzy, of course, goes without saying that his escapades could fill an entire podcast series. The time that he snorted live ants alone would make an entire episode. And I would mention Elvis here, but we did a two-part on Elvis way back in episodes 310 and 311, and I recommend them as both for the topic matter and as some of the finest shows that we've ever done.
That's a plug.
So what I'm saying is there's no single thing we're about to talk about that is all that much worse than anything any other musician has done before or since. The reason I bring it all up is because Michael Jackson had this pristine reputation, and then discovering that he too was just as fucked up and pervy as Elvis kind of hit America in the feels, and it's goddamn well time we talked about it. So, without further ado, grab yourself some Jesus juice, let it settle in, and let's talk about all the weird shit that Michael Jackson did. I think it began with the,
What's with the gloves?
Yeah, young Mike and the rest of the Jackson 5 dressed pretty standard for 70s musicians. Bell-bottoms, wide collars, platform shoes, and bright colors. As a solo artist, Michael Jackson's sartorial choices were fairly benign. Leatherman jacket, solid colors, usually red or black, with penchant for fedoras, and fairly loose-fitting trousers because it's hard to dance in tight pants. In 1983, he performed Billie Jean on the Motown's 25th anniversary TV special, wearing a single rhinestone white glove on his right hand.
It's on one hand, huh?
He'd worn a single glove sporadically prior to this performance, but after his performance, you never saw him without it.
Well, that's kind of weird.
No one could figure out why Mike did this until some years later when he told us he had vitiligo. Now, the Mayo Clinic tells us, quote, vitiligo is a disease that causes the loss of skin color in patches. The discolored areas usually get bigger with time. The condition can affect skin or any part of the body. It can also affect hair and the inside of the mouth. Normally, the color of the hair and skin is determined by melanin. Vitiligo occurs when the cells that produce melanin die or stop functioning. Vitiligo affects people of all skin types, but it may be no more noticeable in people with brown or black skin, unquote. The condition is benign and pretty rare. Only about 1% of the population has it, and understandably, it can be traumatic if you suffer from it. No one could blame Jackson for addressing it, and how he addressed it in his early years was to walk on with the glove. No one would or could think that this would be terribly strange. And yes, vitiligo can cause a person's entire skin to turn milky white, and does so in about 1% of the cases. It's a process that usually takes decades. Mike turned white in a couple of years. It's not impossible, but you know what? No one would give a fuck if Mike said, yeah, I got this, and I'm bleaching my skin to match the tone. But Mike denied knowing anything about skin bleaching and was offended by the very idea that you would even ask. Meanwhile, he's turning whiter and whiter until he's basically Edgar fucking Winter.
I don't know who that is.
It's a 70s musician who is also an albino. It's not important right now. No one believed that MJ wasn't bleaching, and it offended black and white people for similar yet different reasons. But folks still love Michael, and they still bought his records. But you know what? They were starting to pay attention now. Because the thing with the llama was weird. Freddie Mercury, who himself had his own, let's just say, eccentricities, and Michael Jackson went into the studio to record a couple of songs together. Makes sense. But the sessions did not go well. Stories vary, but at some point in time, Michael came into the studio with his pet llama Louie, and Freddie was all,
Is that a llama? I hate llamas.
From the New York Post, quote, I think the last straw was when Michael brought his pet llama into the studio. Joe Burt, who played fretless bass on Mr. Bad Guy, exclusively told the Post. I think Freddie sort of took umbrage to that. Mercury called Queen's manager, Jim Miami Beach, to make his escape from the studio. Mercury rang me, said Miami, dear, can you get over here? You've got to get me out of here. I'm recording with a llama, Beach recalled in a 2012 documentary, Freddie Mercury, The Great Pretender, unquote. Now, Jackson's camp blamed the failed recording sessions on Michael Jackson coming into the studio and finding Freddie doing cocaine, which, okay.
Sounds plausible.
And Jackson was reported to be very puritanical about drugs. You know, he's also a veteran of the music industry. The kid played in strip clubs. There's no way he was so traumatized by seeing Freddie doing a couple of lines of blow that he put the kibosh on a recording session. Freddie, on the other hand, being born and raised in Zanzibar and then Middlesex, might have known what a llama was, but having one in the recording studio was way too bougie for his taste. Drugs, sex workers, sure, but no South American camelids. Nor was Louie MJ's only animal friend. There was a giraffe named Rambo, Mr. Tibbs, his pet ram, a python named Muscles. There were 2 tigers, Sabu and Thriller, a bear named Baloo. One of his elephants, and there were like 6 elephants, was named Gypsy and was a gift from Elizabeth Taylor. All in all, according to the Mirror, quote, Jackson had over 50 different species in his collection of at least 130 animals, including 6 giraffes, 8 alligators, a bear, 20 exotic birds, 3 elephants, 7 apes, 4 tigers, monkeys, snakes, and lizards, unquote. And we haven't even mentioned Bubbles yet. Jackson acquired Bubbles, a male chimpanzee, from a Hollywood animal trainer who purchased the ape as a baby from a medical research lab in Texas. MJ and his chimp walked red carpets, rode in limos, and went on tours together. And Bubbles would stand in for Mike in awkward social situations, as John Bon Jovi tells us.
The story was we were all in the same hotel. We had gone up to see Michael. We hung out with him a little bit. and asked him to come down and hang out with us just to get the poor guy out of his room.
Yeah.
He didn't take us up on it, but he did send Bubbles.
In his face?
He partied hard.
And you did not kidnap.
No, he did not.
He willingly
sent Bubbles, but he wasn't very socially, comfortable with other bands.
Sure.
And stuff, so Bubbles came down practically smoking a cigar. We were like, hey, I'm Bubbles. What do you got? How's those girls?
However, as Bubbles got older and Mike got stranger, Bubbles did what all adult chimps do. Became kind of dangerous to be around and was then kept in the Neverland Zoo. By the way, Bubbles outlived MJ and is still around today at 42 years old and living his life at the Center for Great Apes in Florida, where, according to their website, he is, quote, a calm and artistic presence at the sanctuary. He's a respected leader of his chimpanzee group, which includes his closest friends Oopsie, Boma, Kotua, and Stryker, and especially enjoys painting, often spending quiet time creating colorful works of art, unquote.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to do with that.
All of these animals resided in a private zoo on Michael Jackson's Santa Barbara estate, a 2,700-acre ranch property he christened Neverland Ranch. Mike bought the property in 1988 and began transforming it into a playground. Unlike other stars of his magnitude, Mike did not turn his palatial residence into a debaucherous fuck palace, replete with hot tubs, grottos, and beds big enough for 10 groupies at a time. No, pod friends. He took it in a rather different direction. Mike built an amusement park, complete with a narrow gauge railroad he christened the Neverland Valley Express. There was also a Ferris wheel, carousel, zipper, octopus, pirate ship, wave swinger, super slide, roller coaster, bumper cars, and an amusement arcade. It was a monument to the childlike whimsy and wonder, and Mike loved to have kids come and hang out with him there.
That's called foreshadowing.
Reportedly, Michael slept every night in a hyperbaric chamber, which is a pressurized tube that allows a patient to breathe pure oxygen at higher barometric pressure than normal. The device is commonly used in all sorts of applications, from preparing deep-sea divers to various medical treatments like carbon monoxide poisoning, non-healing wounds like diabetic foot ulcers, certain bone and skin infections, radiation injuries, and air or gas embolisms. The story went that Mike slept in it every night because he thought it would help him live to be 150. This is probably not true, but then again, with Michael, who could say? But he definitely did use it after Pepsi set him on fire in that commercial.
Okay, wait. Can you back up a second?
Oh, yeah. Pepsi damn near killed Michael Jackson. Back in '84, in the hottest fighting of the Cola Wars, Pepsi paid Jackson and his brothers an extraordinary amount of money. The exact amount was never disclosed, but we're talking many millions of dollars, to star in a massive commercial for Pepsi. And then they did it when they were filming it. His hair and clothing caught on fire from a pyrotechnic display. Michael Jackson suffered severe third-degree burns as part of his healing process. He started sleeping in this chamber. Whether or not he continued is, of course, all rumor, but it was a pernicious rumor and, quite honestly, a rather believable rumor. And the Pepsi incident also led to Mike's, well, let's just call it facial transformation. You see, Mike had a nose job for the first time in 1979 after a quote-unquote dancing injury. Now, I am certainly not a professional dancer, but I've never heard of dancing on one's nose, but continue. Followed by another a few years later to correct quote-unquote issues caused by the first nose job. And the scarring from the burns led to a third nose job, and this was the one that was just highly noticeable. Take a look at the covers of his big 3 albums. Off the Wall, Mike's nose. Thriller, nose was a little different, but not that much different. And then Bad, and you will see what everyone saw, because Mike had a big, broad African-American nose, and then it was not
as black as it once was.
Yeah, because as Mike got paler, his nose got narrower, until finally it, we'll just say it collapsed. A 2003 ABC article called it, quote, Michael Jackson has what we call an end-stage nose, a crippled nose, a crucified nose, one that's beyond the point of no return, unquote. It was also speculated that Mike had a forehead lift, cheekbone surgery, and altered his lips, all of which Michael Jackson hotly denied. I mean, he denied the nose thing until it became so obvious, and then he was like, well,
we did do the nose.
And he added the chin dimple, but for the rest, no, these cheekbones, my father has the same thing. We've got Indian blood, unquote. Now, well, I guess we should talk about Mike's love life.
Dave, no!
No, not that. I mean, not yet. That isn't his love life. That's something completely different. We should talk about his dating and marriages. Unlike other stars of his age and status, Mike was not draped with adoring groupies. He told the press that his religious faith, Jehovah's Witness, forbade his engaging in premarital sex, and that seemed to satisfy folks for the most part. Now, this didn't mean he was never seen with a beautiful woman. As we mentioned last week, Mike took Brooke Shields, a very young Brooke Shields, to the Grammys in '84, and despite rumors that they were dating, both strongly maintained that they were platonic friends. In later years, Shields would talk about how they were both children in way over their heads with this whole fame thing. Jackson, on the other hand, said that he was deeply in love with Shields and considered her one of the loves of his life. But still, there were rumors, and people kept noticing things, and people kept saying things. Like how Mike wasn't,
But ain't the most masculine fellow in the world.
So that when Mike finally did find true love, it was in the most king of pop fashion ever, because he married the daughter of the king of rock and roll. In what some would call a royal wedding, if royal weddings were done in secret in the Dominican Republic without either of their families present or even informed.
Only nobility and fancy people can attend a royal wedding.
Like Mike had met Lisa Marie Presley in the 70s, and they reconnected in the 90s when Lisa was interested in having Jackson produce her records. The Business Insider sums it up, quote, "The two kept their marriage a secret for almost 3 months, and when they finally did confirm the rumors, many believed it was a publicity stunt designed to help rehabilitate Jackson's image. Presley released a statement to the press that read, my married name is Lisa Marie Presley Jackson. My marriage to Michael Jackson took place at a private ceremony outside the United States weeks ago," she continued. "I am very much in love with Michael. I dedicate my life to being his wife. I understand and support him. We both look forward to raising a family," unquote. But then later, according to Business Insider, her perceptions of that had changed. Quote, "Leaving my first marriage for the person that I left it for was probably the biggest mistake of my life," Presley reflected in a 2007 interview with Marie Claire, 11 years after she and Jackson had divorced. She also told Oprah Winfrey in 2010 that she felt disposable to Jackson as he was so insistent that she have his baby, but also threatened to father children with another woman, unquote. And it was one of those marriages that was definitely made for the tabloids, literally and figuratively. The daughter of Elvis and Michael Jackson? Come on, the tabloids could never get enough of them. The thing is, what they couldn't get enough of was the rumors that the whole thing was merely a distraction from certain legal problems that Mike was having at the time, which I will address shortly. The public looked at the two of them together and said, "Not buying it." When the two appeared in public, their PDA seemed stiff and performative. Neither of the two seemed to want to be close to the other. The assertions of love and intentions to have children struck their audience as unconvincing and, frankly, a little excessive. Rumors about their lack of sex life swirled, only to be countered by rumors from them, the couple, about what a passionate lover Michael Jackson was, how he was insatiable in the bedroom and could go for hours. From El Paz, quote, "According to a 1985 article in the National Enquirer, Presley allegedly said, 'It was absolutely wild. He was slow getting started, and then he just wanted more and more,' unquote. Yet, despite their endless love, the children did not come, probably because Michael didn't come, and by 95, Lisa was seen frolicking on the beach with a new man, and the couple were divorced in 96. And all of this just fed into the assumption that Mike had only married her to distract from a legal settlement with a family of a 12-year-old by the name of Jordan Chandler over sexual abuse allegations.
So, there it is.
Yeah, by the start of the 90s, MJ was the biggest celebrity in the world. He had millions of adoring fans, and kids loved Michael. Michael, well, he loved kids.
Really, Dave?
What I mean is, much of his philanthropic work was focused on helping children. His foundation, Heal the World, according to Wikipedia, quote, "worked to provide medicine to children and fight world hunger, homelessness, child exploitation, and abuse." Jackson stated that he wanted to improve conditions for children throughout the world, unquote. He worked with Make-A-Wish extensively, and there were a lot of kids that wished to meet Michael Jackson. There's no need for me to go into lurid details about what happened, partially out of simple good taste, but mostly is because the allegations are well known, and, you can't make the situation funny. So suffice to say that the allegations were made, allegations that were backed up circumstantially, that Mike did some things to young boys over the years that, at the very least, were inappropriate, and if true, they were fucking evil.
That's all I had to say about that.
But those allegations, the mere innuendo of those allegations, were enough for most people. And while the allegations in 1994 were settled out of court, many people still thought that the kind of people that accused famous people of sex crimes were looking to make a quick buck. But the later allegations, which saw Jackson arrested and charged, ruined what goodwill Jackson's eccentricities and long moribund musical career had left. By 2005, his trial was a media circus beyond even the O.J. Simpson trial, with Jackson dancing on cars, legions of loyal fans, and outraged activists clashing around the courthouse. And while he was acquitted on the charges, the sum of his oddities was now so large that people couldn't do anything but find him an object of ridicule at best. So Jackson took his new wife, a nurse by the name of Debbie Rowe, who had actually given him a couple of kids. I'm not even going to get into that. And went into a self-imposed exile in Bahrain, where he was protected from the prying eyes of the media and fans. He found himself in debt, having spent several fortunes over his lifetime, and was struggling to find relevance in a new century, new millennia, and new world. Hoping to rehabilitate his image and pay down some of his debts, he planned a series of concerts in 2009, strongly hinting at either a comeback or a retirement, whichever one's going to make him more money. And during preparations for this first concert in London, he died from an OD of the anesthesia drug propofol and Valium, which a doctor was prescribed to him to, quote-unquote, help him sleep. Also, goddamn, Michael Jackson couldn't even do real drugs, like a real rock star. Propofol doesn't even get you fucking high. There was never a chance that Michael Jackson was going to be normal. Born with a once-in-a-generation talent to a monster of a man who abused his children mentally and physically and allegedly sexually, he was thrown into the machine at 6 years old, famous by 7 and a superstar by 18. Nothing in his life gave him any idea how to be, for lack of a better word, normal. Jackson himself gave many interviews on the topic of his lost childhood and how if he was eccentric, then he had every right to be. And this is correct. And had his eccentricities been limited to llamas and chimpanzees, to toy trains and Ferris wheels, no one could or would fault him. But there are millions of people in the world who have bad or worse childhoods than Mike. They didn't become pop stars idolized by millions and earning unspeakable amounts of money, and they never hurt any kids. And there is little question in my mind that Mike did hurt people. The exact nature of the harm may be unproven, but that he did harm isn't. And I don't hate Michael Jackson. I admire his talent. I have compassion for his difficulties and empathy for his family. But I can't forgive him either. He had almost everything. But the things he couldn't have, he took anyway. And he got away with it because he had the money to buy his freedom. And when he died in 2009, the world was now free to pretend that the bad part of him never happened. And when reminded of them a few years later, they more or less shrugged it off because Thriller's a hell of a good song and bad, well, bad is for people without enough money to pay for a team of really good lawyers. Because when you're a star, they really do let you do it. So Shimon, indeed.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
That is it for the show this week and for our little two-part journey through the life and times of the King of Pop. Yeah, it was all fun and games until the child sex abuse topic comes up, but y'all knew that was coming when you got into this, unless, of course, you have recently arrived on this planet. If so, welcome. Thanks for listening. Can you please take me with you when you go? Speaking of taking it with you when you go, rate and review this show so others can find us and take a listen and wonder what dark inheritance I've left to the world when I'm gone. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck that was. Just some sort of nonsense that I just made up off the top of my head. I should never riff and stick to the script. Speaking of nonsense, do all the things Jeremy tells you to do in the closing credits. Otherwise, he will not approve my expense request for 50 pounds of monkey chow that I bought because Gavin has to eat. And so for me, Dave, Say what you want to say, but don't play games with my affection, Bledsoe. Producer,
Take. Take is all you do, and I think you need some direction.
Gavin! And all the fictional chipper anchors on this show, we want to say, now go where you want to, but don't leave me here without at least a bowl of water, the AC running, and a few handfuls of monkey chow. Wow, I'm getting worse and worse at these closers. And we'll see you all next week.
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
I said we cut off your Johnson.
Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.